Hello again guys, and welcome to another video. Today we are going to be doing a scenario here in South America. Now in the real world, this area, mostly this, doesn't have a lot of issues. It's a pretty stable area and nobody really does anything, excluding a certain country right here. So today we're going to be putting up the strongest country in South America, aka Brazil, up against the entirety of the rest of the continent. And yes, I know French Guiana is a part of France, but for this scenario we're just going to be assuming that French Guiana automatically got independence for some reason. We're also going to be including Panama. I consider the border to be the Panama Canal. You can think differently, but I think the blue team will need the help. I'm also going to be adding in Trinidad, and let's get started. Okay. So first things first, Brazil is the aggressor, which means they will get the surprise advantage and they can begin to push in. Paraguay, Uruguay. Oh my god, I already messed up. This is Uruguay. And not the strongest of nations, Argentina, a lot stronger. But Brazil begins in three main offensives. One here in the south into Uruguay and Argentina. One here in the center against Bolivia and Paraguay. And we also see Brazil starting one offensive up here into the north, into Venezuela and Colombia. Although, also if you didn't know, this is all rainforest. It's the Amazon rainforest. Might have heard of the Amazon River. Yeah, there's a massive rainforest here. Any progress made here, not important, not at all. Quickly see Bolivian and Peruvian troops arrive and kick back the Brazilians in Bolivia, while Brazil begins to make gains in the Guyana area, like Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana. With that, they also begin an offensive into Peru, but like I said, this is all jungle, it doesn't really matter. What does matter a bit more is their push into Paraguay, though, which goes decently successfully, but Argentine troops are arriving and are beginning to push back on all fronts. We now see the first stalemate. But guess what happens when a stalemate is broken? Movement. So Brazil begins a spearhead towards the coastline of Guyana. It's successful, and all of this area is now encircled and is being quickly destroyed. This is like, it isn't super fast, but this is in a few weeks that this entire territory has fallen. Venezuelan troops begin to move in, but Brazil has managed to take a majority of the area. Although over here in Peru has sent, like, this is like a third of the Peruvian military into literal rainforest. Huge losses, low gains, but hey, that is the blue team's first major advance. And soon enough, Colombia joins in with this, beginning their own push into Brazil. Now, for the winner of this, it's close. It's very, very close. The stats are incredibly close, and I don't really think it's going to be that easy to decide a winner. So it's probably going to end in a stalemate, but I guess we'll just have to see. Bolivia also joins in this Amazon campaign, with it being the first major blue team campaign. Brazil, on the other hand, begins a much larger push into Paraguay as Argentina retreats some of their divisions. A majority of the country falls, and soon the country surrenders. If you're wondering why it's not all colored in, it's still controlled by the blue team army. Just know Paraguay no longer exists. Next up on Brazil's hit list, Uruguay. They take their capital of Montevideo, right about there, and very quickly take the country. Although Argentina, if you didn't know, capital is like right there, Buenos Aires. They managed to send in a lot of divisions to retake the coastline of Paraguay. Uruguay. It's Uruguay. Oh my god, what am I doing? Although for now, Colombian troops are arriving and Venezuelan troops are pushing Brazil completely out of their countries and pushing into the rainforest with specialized and special trained divisions. Meanwhile, Brazil is continuing to push into Guyana, taking the entire country and beginning to push into Venezuela in a lot more important regions here on the coast. This may not seem like a lot, but this area right here That little piece right there, probably more important than all of this. Brazil makes a landing and takes some islands. Some of these are also going to be included, but can't really include that. Probably goes up to like Barbados. That's about there. We see the blue team continuing their massive advance into Brazil over here in the rainforest, but as I said before, not very important. Brazil can very easily counter this and stop it from being important. Meanwhile, most of Chile and Argentina's forces are now here in Uruguay, pushing back the Brazilians all the way to the border, and even beginning small pushes in with a tiny amount of their army. Meanwhile, Brazil is focusing on Bolivia because they realized something. They go for Uruguay, Paraguay, the Guyanas, Suriname, all those weak countries. The blue team won't be affected if they lose. The army's still fighting with them. But if they can take out Bolivia, that will be horrible for the blue team. So they push across, take, I don't know which one's which. They have like 2 capitals on there, one there. Don't know which one's which, but they take one of them. We then also see Argentine troops push back into Paraguay. As I said, Brazil has new targets and don't really care about controlling this area. Kind of a mistake though. They didn't really expect Argentina to bother pushing into this area, and Argentina completely recaptures the country, along with a slight push into Brazil. And now a new stalemate is made. The winner currently, probably Brazil. I mean, they control a lot of Bolivia, as I said, the Guyana area. But they don't think they're winning enough, so they decide to send a huge part of their army up here into Venezuela to take the coast, push around quite a bit, but are eventually stopped. Meanwhile, the blue team continues its offensives here in the south, retaking all of Argentina's land and pushing in a lot on all borders. We then see Brazil finally realize what the blue team's doing, so they attempt to push back into the south, taking the entire south back for themselves. And if you're wondering, where's the Argentine army? Where's the Uruguayan army? Where's the Chilean army? They just captured Buenos Aires, you idiot, you're gonna lose. Well, they're all up here. And that just happened. So now we have a huge part of the Brazilian military stuck down here in the south, dying. The capital of Argentina and Uruguay are captured, so is the entire country. And soon, very, very quickly, these armies are eradicated. With this, Brazil attempts to push back in, but can't do much, as this has been a huge win for the blue team. With this, Bolivia and Peru are also able to push back, as Brazil had sent, as I said, a lot of divisions down here in the south. Those divisions were not here in Bolivia, allowing for them to push back, although they do not yet reach the border. We then see the blue team send a ton of divisions to capture the entirety of the rainforest. That's not the whole thing, it stretches out a lot more like that. Actually, no, it stretches out like that. It's very big, but they did capture a majority of it. Basically, all they did was go out along the edges and claim the area, as Brazil had no troops there. This isn't defended, this is just land that the blue team is claiming. While this is happening though, we do see a bit more blue team offensive in the south, and the complete withdrawal of Brazilian troops from Bolivia to attempt to stabilize their fronts better. At this point now, Brazil is starting to lose, but the people have not lost hope, and if you're wondering why, it's because this is happening over here in the north, and Venezuela is falling. Soon enough, the country surrenders, and all that's left now is military groups and other blue team armies. Huge, huge win for Brazil. What they didn't expect, though, is that the blue team did a little funny on them again. They allowed the red team army to come storming in through the north, and Brazil made the exact same mistake. They thought, hey, these blue guys are an idiot. They're letting us walk through their land, basically, where their armies are so weak, blah, 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 blah. Their armies were over here in Venezuela. Oh, that just happened. Oh, that just happened. Oh, that just happened. Okay. and that, and that, and that, and that. Oh my god, and that just happened. What a coincidence. And now, Brazil is losing on all fronts. Massive offensives in all areas, just all across the border. The blue team knows no more special maneuvers. Brazil's dead. They do begin one more thing though, and that's the bombardment and taking of the Brazilian coast. As it is the most important area, they take Rio, push across, take Brasilia, push in quite a bit to Brazilian land over here along the coast and a bit in the center, taking a majority of the land. With this, the Brazilian populace is becoming restless, and we see multiple rebel groups emerge here in the center, where the Brazilian government has less control than on the coast. With this, they all meet up with blue team armies, join forces, and just look at this map. Who's gonna win? To the capturing of more of Brazil's coast, the encirclement of multiple armies, and the casualties of many, many Brazilian men, we finally see Brazil surrender to the blue team. Now, for the peace treaty, we are going to be seeing the blue team punishing Brazil, as this was not planned. There was no reason for it. Brazil just went right out and attacked the blue team. And for that, the blue team will be punishing Brazil pretty badly. So first, let's set everything to white, reset everything, and then we can draw in the new borders. So first things first, Argentina, one of the main contributors, has to get like a lot of land. They are probably the reason that the blue team actually won this. So they gain a decent amount of central Brazilian land. Uruguay gets the rest of the south. Uruguay is now huge, very powerful country. Paraguay also gets a decent amount of land. No real sense or reason here. I'm just putting in the borders. Peru gets about all the land that they occupied, which is this. Same thing with Colombia. They get their original occupations. As for Venezuela, same thing, original occupations. When they first attacked the Amazon territory, this is what each of these three had, so that is what they're getting. As for Guyana, Suriname, all of them, they just get a bit of land off of the border. Brazil doesn't mind this too much, and I mean, this right here is the worst part. But honestly, Brazil would have survived with a tiny bit less coast. As for Bolivia, they get a bit of northern land and a bit along the border. Now we see Brazil heavily weakened, and one of the blue team's strategies here was to strengthen some weaker countries, Uruguay, Paraguay, and the Guyanas. And they're doing this so that if Brazil ever dares to attack them again, they will be able to easily destroy them. Also, you can't actually see it on a map. Brazil was sanctioned hard. Used to be one of the strongest militaries, best economies, largest countries. Yeah, no, not anymore. They're still the largest country in South America by a decent amount. But economy-wise, I don't even know if they would still be first. Population-wise, doing well, but GDP per capita and stuff like that is not great after the war. So maybe some things may happen with land exchanges for money from Brazil, but that's a completely different story. And that's in the future after the war. For now, we're just drawing in the peace treaty. Once again, the blue team did win. They didn't win by a lot, but they actually managed to not just stalemate, but win against Brazil. They captured a majority of their land and forced the government to surrender. Doesn't happen the most often of times. On the blue team, let's just say South American relations are great. Any form of, border disputes, it's all gone. Anything up here is also gone. All border disputes have been solved, friendships remade. Even Venezuela's government was changed. Of course, that was just for the sake of this scenario. The current day Venezuelan government isn't very good. They are ruining the Venezuelan economy, and there's nothing anyone can do about that. But in this scenario, they got a new, very good government. So these are the new borders of South America, and I hope you did enjoy. Goodbye.